Welcome back to a new episode of the IT and Tech podcast. My name is Holger Winkler, and I'm glad to have you back. Today, we want to take a look at a software that speeds up inventories 10 times faster than before. For this, I warmly welcome Adam Wainwright, CEO of Zupan. Hello, and a warm welcome, Adam.
Thank you, Holger.
It's a pleasure having you here, Adam. Let's talk about first, what's the magic behind your software so that you can speed up inventories by 10x?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it, and thank you for conducting the interview in English. As I told you, my German is a little bit comical, but we really have a big passion for making businesses more efficient. And I trained originally as an auditor, and we saw that in all of these audits and business transactions that inventories were always wrong. They were always approximate. They were always all over, the map in terms of the numbers that were coming out. And we saw millions and millions and millions of dollars of inventory that either people didn't know where it was or it was going missing. And so I actually started working on this. And we came at this from the business process. We looked at it from how can we fix the business process of inventory counting? Surely there's a better way than printing out pieces of paper and everybody walking around a warehouse or a store. And we examined every piece of the business process. We went through it, all the big consultants. And then we realized that actually it was technology. And so first we went with barcode scanning and voice recognition. And now we've built computer vision and machine learning where you can use the phone that's in your pocket and simply capture images and translate those images to data. So we eliminate the need to, say, scan a barcode or count manually. The computer and the algorithms in the background are doing all that work for us. And then if we have a single source of truth for the data, we put the single source of truth back into the ERP or accounting system. So there's no manual entry. These are all sources of error. So really what we want to do is eliminate sources of error and use the best technology. And of course, we're doing some innovation as well, which is, it's fun to be on the leading edge right now of machine learning, computer vision.
Cool. So let's dive in these aspects. First thing is you don't need barcodes anymore, right? It might help, but you don't need barcodes to recognize an item. How does it work? Tell us something about that.
Yeah. So let's take. A computer vision model needs to be trained. So we need to know what we're looking at to train. So maybe on a first count, we want to scan a barcode, or maybe it needs to have an item number. But let's imagine that we're looking at a shelf full of goods in a grocery store. Mm-hmm. If you or I are standing in an Aldi, we know what that item is because it says on the item, right? And we know that the grocery store maybe only has 20 or 30,000 items. Well, we can first of all, we can categorize. So we can say, oh, this is a box, this is a can, this is a whatever it happens to be. And then we look at the data we can actually see. And most of the time, we can actually just figure out what an item is from the data we can see visually, the same way that humans do it. I mean, this is the exciting thing with technology right now is we are developing systems that can use what humans use, which is just visually recognizing and then matching, right? And we do this with ourselves, right? We visually recognize and pattern match, and that's the same thing we're doing. Just at much greater speed and frankly, much greater accuracy.
So this means, going back to the grocery example, right?
Yeah.
I just walk through, I don't know, a warehouse or even a store.
Yeah.
I don't have to, with my brain, to tell the system what kind of item I'm now looking for or counting. I don't have to count because I just take a picture or even a scan mode, something like that.
Yep.
And your system discovers what kind of item this is and is able to count it within seconds, even if I wouldn't be able to count that. So let's take the example of the box with the apples, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's say there's only one shelf with apples at Aldi right now.
Okay.
No three different types, or
Yep.
Keep it simple
Just
for the first
just
thing,
the
right?
Apple store.
Okay.
The Apple store. The Apple store has one type of apples. Let's say.
Okay, let's start with one type of apple. So
we have one type of apple.
I've got a wonderful green box, and it says maybe apples on there and the price tag. But how do you calculate, or how do you measure how many apples are in this box right now?
Yeah, what happens? So what happens? Let's run through it start to finish. So what will happen when the count is initiated? A manager, an administrator, they set up the count. We will pull the inventory data from the accounting or ERP system. So let's say it's SAP Business One. We pull, okay, we have one item. Those are apples. And we have, let's say that we're counting per item, per apple at this point. I mean, often these things are measured, fruit would be measured in weight, but let's just leave that aside. So we pull it in and we are looking for 1,000 apples. And we walk up to the only box in our Apple store, that a big 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter bin, and it has full of apples. So then we will take a photo of this. We will look at the inventory file and say, okay, here is the apples. And let's say we have many different items, but we look at the apples, and then we we slice it, and we measure using computer vision the size of the box. We slice and extrapolate, and then we can say, okay, well, if this slice, which we can see, has this number of apples, assuming that the whole box is full of apples, then there must be this number of apples in that box. And right now we are within, in that example, the bulk goods example, we're within 0.5% or less. The one that the challenge that we keep ourselves holding ourselves to is a bucket of bolts. Mm-hmm. So the same thing, we have a bucket is round, so we need to do some extra math there, and then how many bolts are visible, and how big is the bucket, and on the bucket of bolts problem, we can get to within 0.1% right now. Okay. But that's also how that's how our brain works, right? We extrapolate. It's just here we can extrapolate using an Amazon data center sitting outside of Frankfurt. It's pretty exciting. Yeah.
So we now talked about the single apple, or a box where I can pick each apple on itself. If I have a tray there with six apples in it, it makes it even simpler for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's assume that it's now a wrapped apple tray that has a barcode on it. Well, first of all, we can visually read the barcode. We can use optical character recognition to read what read what the description of the item says. And I mean, maybe we even use a different example. Let's say we have 16 different products on a shelf that are all they all have a different description, or maybe they're boxes in a warehouse and they have different markings on them. They have maybe a barcode, not even a barcode, an item number or a description. And we can use the same process to understand what those are and then match that up. And then the thing that's interesting about this is we don't just count. So if we look at that, we come back to our end-to-end solution. We bring the data out of the ERP or accounting system. We figure out what we have in front of us. We count the item using computer vision. And then we check that against what is actually in the ERP or accounting system. Mm-hmm. And let's say in our example, there is a big discrepancy. Well, we can actually set, or the customer can actually set their threshold for what they want to investigate. Mm-hmm. And this is called variance counting, variance checking. Mm-hmm. And the real aim is to have the customer carry less inventory.
Right. So by this kind of process, I don't have to do inventory on the 31st of December because I just do it every day. Is it something like that?
So, I mean, that would be the best case, really. And we actually have a customer, funny enough, a grocery store that they used to. So here, let's give an example. This company is a quite large business in North America. They are not publicly traded, but they are an audited company, and their auditor asked them to count 4 times a year.
Mhm.
And so they paid an external counting company to come and count 4 times a year, every location, more than 1,000 locations. So this is a huge cost for them.
Wow.
Yeah, huge cost. And they had to close the store for part of the day 4 times a year to count, because
Right.
that's what the inventory counter said. So what we did is we worked with them to implement, and they already, this amazing part is they already had Zebra scanner guns in their store.
Mhm.
So those scanner guns used Android. And so we simply uploaded an application onto the hardware they already have. They could have used an iPhone or any other device. And every morning they count 1 aisle. Takes 20 minutes, not even 20 minutes, takes 20 minutes, whatever. And now they're getting a full count of that store once a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the way
it's just
you
technology.
say,
Yeah.
that's the way you say you can
Right.
10x your
Yeah.
inventory cost, right?
Yeah.
Decrease the inventory cost by
Yeah.
10x. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the counting costs. I mean, if we say a 10x improvement, we're talking about just the cost of counting,
Right.
right? And if you look at a traditional external inventory counting firm, 10x improvement easily, because their business model is they charge you one rate, they pay the employee a different rate, so they have a labor arbitrage, and that's their business model. We all know that there's a lot of or not a lot, but there's time that's downtime for employees and businesses.
Sure.
And we know that inventory counting is not a fun task.
Right.
So if we make this a useful task, if we make it easy,
All right.
and we integrate it in the business process, then we can eliminate cost. And the other side of it, of course, is we don't just eliminate cost. Now we can say, what do we actually have on the shelf? What do we actually need? Because inventory, of course, has a carrying cost, and interest rates are coming up, and so that makes a big difference on what the carrying cost is actually will be.
Let's take a look how complicated it is to make your system work. If I already have an existing ERP system, because I think maybe many people out there think this might be a large project to get your magic software, let's put it that way, happen with my old school SAP or whatever, because they might be installed 20 years ago. Don't take it for granted, but you know what I mean, because
absolutely.
This is a running system. Nobody likes to touch that.
Of
but
course.
I think you already had a resolution or solution which is ready to run, right?
Yeah. So the way we built this, I mean, again, we started with the perspective of auditing everything from large public companies to small businesses. And we saw one commonality, that every system can import and export a CSV file. That's how the inventory across the entire industry, every system does it the same way. So we wanted something where, as you say, and maybe it's even worse than you're saying. Maybe it's I track my inventory on Excel, and it's highly manual, and there are we've seen a lot of different cases. Implementation is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've built every integration to be a one-click integration.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not fully integrated, then we've built it so that you can drop your CSV file into our system, do the count, and it will give you an output file with a variance report. So we've thought of addressing all these various, let's say, business challenges, levels of sophistication, and on the other hand, if you're running the latest version of SAP Business One or whatever it happens to be, then it will all happen seamlessly in the background, and no one ever touches anything. Mm-hmm. But with a data audit trail. So the data doesn't just disappear. Everything is logged, everything. And let's say your firm is audited, right? I mean, the auditor will want to see actually what happened, who counted what at what time. Mm-hmm. And so we can also produce those data logs, those audit logs, and the actual photos that were used to take of the items as well.
Wow.
So now, instead of an auditor traveling to an inventory count, the auditor can sit in the office in Munich or Frankfurt or on the beach in Sri Lanka or whatever, for those millennial auditors. And
let's talk about how trustworthy your solution is for Europeans, because we are talking today in English, right?
Yeah.
And I would say Europeans sometimes are a little bit skeptical about a solution not from our continent. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
You are located in Zurich. Let's talk about why you decided to start from Zurich. Why you moved there? Why you are working with German or Swiss or whatever engineers and programmers? What's behind that, and how does it work with the support? Because most of the German-speaking countries, I think, they like to have a support here and not overseas and to different time zones and whatever. Let's take a focus on that, and then afterwards we dive right again into the software and so on.
Okay, I'll see if I can remember all the questions in order.
I rewinded.
Maybe. Okay, so let me start with the first question first. How did we end up here in Switzerland? So I am Canadian originally. I'm from Vancouver. I lived for many years in Hong Kong, where I worked. And then I went back to Canada 2019. And we built another company, a software company. And we saw this issue again with inventory counting. And we realized that Canada was not the best place to build a software company, particularly the West Coast, because we had a lot of competition from the big US corporates, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, etc. And the very best talent would always be taken down to the US. Okay, so we went looking around. We looked at Austin, Texas as a place to base. Austin is kind of an up and coming place. We look at Singapore because, I'd lived in Hong Kong, a lot of experience with Asia. Singapore is a very good, stable place. And then a friend of mine recommended we look at Zurich. And Zurich is a wonderful city. And I thought, but building a company there didn't make a lot of sense to me. Anyhow, no, really. It didn't intuitively make sense to me at first. I reached out to the Greater Zurich area, the sort of business association here, and they were unbelievably helpful. And they really were incredible. And to this day, actually, I still have lunch with my contact there, and they really helped us to see that it was not only possible, it was the right choice to build a business in Switzerland, in DACH. I think that, to your point, I think that often people don't intuitively think, oh, that's a tech hub. That's where I want to be as a tech hub. But I would argue that Google, one of their largest office outside of Mountain View is here in Zurich. Right? Disney Research. I mean, Zurich is a massive tech hub, and it's not well advertised though. And at the end of the day, ETH is the Swiss Federal Polytechnic. This is where Einstein studied physics. This is an incredible educational institution, and we have hired some unbelievably good talent, not just from Switzerland, from Germany, Southern Europe as well, who have all moved and relocated. And I think that it gives us the perspective. I think what's really interesting is it gives us a perspective, because there's a lot of small and medium business. We're going to do a photo shoot tomorrow with a customer. This is a small family business. They've been in business for 55 years. They were able to reduce their total inventory by 12%. They have higher sales because now they know what the customer needs. And we're doing sort of a joint article in a local magazine. And this to us really makes a lot of sense. And we feel really lucky to be here. Particularly, it's a really happy with this decision, actually.
Cool. So
Okay. Second question was.
no. Let me put some new question on the table.
Sure.
Maybe we get back to the other one later on.
Let me take the support question. Actually, the support question was a good one. Yeah, support question was a good one. So I structure support in the way that I want to be supported, because nothing drives me. I absolutely do not like poor support. So our philosophy is this, that we will have somebody in your time zone who speaks your language, who understands exactly the business problem you're having. Mm-hmm. So we pay probably more than we should be paying to our support people. I hope they don't watch this. And, hi guys. But we really, often when these questions come up, if somebody's doing an inventory count and they have a question, they don't want to submit a form. They don't want to wait in line. They want an answer right now. And, our philosophy is to provide the support that we would want if the situation was reversed. So, does that cut into, our profit a little bit? Sure, of course it does. Mm-hmm. But we would much rather have the customer be happy. Right. Yeah. That's working so far.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we covered the point that it's more or less. Can we say it's made by heart in Zurich, something like that? So,
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So we have no overseas developers. We have no nearshore developers. Everyone is right here in Zurich. Infrastructure wise, or let's say security wise, we have built everything to ISA 27001, or for the rest of the world, and SOC 2 in the US. Our chief security person has come out of the I'm not allowed to actually say, but a unit of a country which deals with a lot of intelligence, and so it's his philosophy is that data leaks will be the last problem we have to solve. Cool. And what's really interesting now is that we can also and we believe in co-locating the data with the customer. So if you're a German company, the data is Germany. If you're a Swiss company, it's in Switzerland, and so forth.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's take a few for what kind of companies your software is made, because it makes a difference if you're doing inventory at an Amazon warehouse or the grocery store next door, and all of them have to do the inventory thing. When you started this kind of business, what kind of business sizes you had in mind and made the software happen?
So when we started, we thought that we were just going to, we thought that we were going to be looking at the mid-market. Mm-hmm. Really, the couple hundred employees, those businesses that maybe haven't looked at their processes for a little while, that maybe they haven't, they're starting to be audited, or they have some kind of change where they're thinking, oh, we should probably clean this up. And we very quickly realized that actually the customers who were calling us were large listed multinational companies, and they were from all over the world, but predominantly the United States. And so we started with the mid-market and SMEs. That was really where we started, and we wanted to be. And we very quickly saw that the bigger companies were also interested in this. We built the software. We built it to count anything. There are some things which are harder to count, but anything that you and I can recognize, it can recognize, essentially. If it's harder for you and I to recognize, then it's harder. Then it takes more time for our software to train.
So yes, I can do the inventory in the warehouse or distribution center. I can do it in the store. From your point of view, in which location does it make at most sense to work with your software?
The most sense is larger stores that have a lot of individual items.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, especially where you're having struggles with some kind of, let's say, shrinkage, loss,
Mm-hmm.
damage, or theft. There's something's not working in your process, and
Mm-hmm.
often, if you talk to a consulting firm, they'll say, well, besides needing more consulting, they'll tell you the first thing you need is some kind of fancy data analytics.
Right.
And, we have observed that often those fancy data analytics are using wrong, the data source is wrong to start with.
Mm-hmm.
The single source of truth is not correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so, often we say, okay, let's actually figure out what the inventory is, because for a lot of businesses, inventory is a large line item, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot of inventory sitting around, and once we know what the inventory is, then we can start to do the analytics, and that's a much better, philosophical way to approach improving processes than just simply trying to analyze numbers which are incorrect.
Cool. So it's
Can't remember if I answered your question there.
It's a lot about figures and money behind that. So if somebody is interested with this solution or to this solution, you say there's an ROI of 4 within a year, right? Let's talk about that. What do I need to make Zupan? Is Zupan the name of your software solution?
Yeah.
It's
Zupan,
the name of the company and the software.
Correct.
So is it a Zupan 2.0 or what is it right now?
I think we're on 2.1 right now.
2.1.
I'm sure. It'll probably be 2.1.2 by the time that this gets released. But so the name of the product is AI Count.
AI. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do I need?
This is what happens when you let engineers name products.
That's the name you for sure can't get the domain for, but
no, it definitely isn't. No.
Even this .ch.
No. even that. So Zupan means abacus in Korean. My co-founder is Korean Canadian, and she was in capital markets for many years, and sort of similarly saw the inefficiency, and we wanted to name the company Abacus, but as you know, there's lots of companies named Abacus already, and so what do we need to make it work? So the software works on any iOS or Android device for data capture, and on the back end, it's a web app. So just like a Gmail or any other email service, it's a secure web app.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to integration, we've built one-click integrations for all the popular ERP and accounting systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just use your sign-on for those, and we connect them. A lot of customers have asked us about how the data lives. Will my employees be able to see the inventory, the inventory file, or know how much inventory we have? So the way we structured it, actually, the person who built the data structure used to work at a bank, and we built this the exact same way that a banking application works.
Mm-hmm.
So a banking application doesn't send your banking info to your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it allows you to view one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And in our case, we follow the principle of blind counting.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't let people see what they're looking for, because if I say, are there 10 items here? Very likely you'll see 10. And and we come back to, let's be accurate. So if we can just take a photo of these items, all we're pulling from the inventory system to the person's phone is the identifier. And we created an individual unique identifier, but is this, back to our Apple example, is this the green apple? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
And then we send how many there are. And so nothing lives on the phone.
What happens if I don't have a Wi-Fi or a connection to the network?
Yeah. So you need a Wi-Fi or connection to start the count. I mean, to receive the information. Then you can go into the deepest bunker you want, do all the counting. You can select end count. And when you next connect to Wi-Fi or mobile data, then it will synchronize the count. Cool. Yeah, so it'll work offline. I mean, there's a lot of places where, you know, warehouses in a depression and there's not a mobile antenna and the signal's not strong. Or we knew that from personal experience doing inventory counts in Canada.
How long does it take with such a kind of project to make it run, or even that I've got a first idea if it will work for me in my setting?
Yeah. I mean, normally in 15 or 20 minutes of speaking to a customer, we can understand what their situation is, how much inventory they have, how, you know, tighter their current processes. We spoke to a shop the other day, a multi-location clothing retailer in Switzerland, and the guy asked us, you know, here's my current setup. What do you think? And we said, you know, they honestly, they have an incredible setup, and they've spent a lot of money on individual hardware. And we said, oh, we can probably give you a 2x improvement, but that for us doesn't make sense. So we built this to be consumer level easy, but enterprise grade secure. And I think in the next 5 or 10 years, you'll see more people doing that, because business systems don't need to be complex. I mean, look at how easy it is to use the GPS on your phone or the Google Maps on your phone, and then it's so hard to use the business information system you're using every day. I mean, that's because of an incumbent design often. And I think we'll see those improving a lot in the next couple of years.
Sorry to ask again.
No.
How long does it take, Adam?
Oh, yes.
If I'm on the phone with you, you tell me, Holger, this might be working for you.
Yeah.
How long does it take to make it happen, or that I'm sure that it will happen? How much time do I bring in, and how much money will this cost?
Oh, I mean, time. If we're on the phone, we can turn it on for you right now.
Okay.
I mean, we can spool it up instantaneously, in essence. And because we've built a very scalable infrastructure, we can scale up very large very quickly. There is some for computer vision machine learning, there is some time it takes to train models. That does take time, and so there may be let's say there will be some delay, because we will do some manual checking in the first few counts to make sure that the software is reading correctly, to make sure that items are recognized correctly, because we don't want to come back to the customer and say, oh yes, here's the count, and the count is wrong. Right. So first question, it can be spooled up essentially instantaneously. The second question, how much will it cost? Less than people think. I mean, you know, really, you know, we think that this should be something that is cheap enough that people forget about, and that when we come and do the renewal, we can say, you know, we can sit down together and say, you know, did this work? Are you happy with it? Yes. And we want the customer to walk away and say, man, there's no way I would not renew for this price. Sure. And I mean, obviously, we spoke to, you know, the largest retailer on the planet a few weeks ago. I mean, obviously, we're going to ask for a slightly higher price from them than we do from the local wine shop here, who, by the way, has some of the best inventory counting, because we always test new features on him. But yeah, I mean, really, we're aiming for a 4x ROI. Whatever somebody's spending on this software, we want to make sure that that they can see that they're making €4 or $4 off of every dollar spent, within a year. Yeah. And we want that to keep going, right? We don't want it to just be year one. We want every year, because if somebody subscribes today, right? We want to honor those prices going forward. But in a year or two, the software will get better and better and better. I mean, with machine learning, computer vision models, these models improve. And as we get better at recognizing, blue cups, then the model will get better and better and better, and it will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And that essentially now the customer has that advantage. Yeah, it's exciting.
So,
it's an exciting time, actually.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
What shall somebody do after listening to this interview who might be interested in Zupan, or you call it AI count?
Yes.
And who'd like to take a look at it, and if it would work for him, what should this kind of people do? What do you
So we have a website. It's Zupan.ai, and the German landing page is /de.
We will link that below for sure.
We'll link that below. We'll also link a direct link to have a chat. I mean, we're very happy to. Our best case is if your inventory is really good and we can help you in some small way, and you go on your way. I mean, really, if every business was like that, the world would be way better. The economy would be much more productive. It would be, but that's not often the case. So, and then of course, we will offer your listeners a discount on their first year, because we appreciate that people want to learn and grow and think about new ways to solve problems, and we're very committed to that.
Cool. So it's Zupan.ai solution, or Zupan.ai/de. I will spell this in German. So it's Z wie Zürich, Udo, dann P wie Paula, Adam und N wie Nordpol.ai und dann /de. So, dann haben wir das auch nochmal auf diese Art und Weise. Let's finish with the last question, please. Is there any inventory which really is not measurable by AI count? Are there any limits from your point of view where it's hard to get the 4x ROI you're talking about, or where it's really impossible to make it happen?
There are raw materials, large pieces of raw materials. Like if we talk of a pile of sulfur or gravel or sand or something, there's a special technique to view those from above, which really works best on a drone. We have tried very hard to stay away from specific hardware, because if you look at the number of different cables you have in your drawer for all the different connections, we don't want people to have, one thing for inventory and one thing for this and one thing for that. We want them to use what they have already. So really the large bulk goods is really challenging. In the grocery stores, if you have, anything that expires, measuring an expiry date, saying this banana is 17% ripe. This is extremely, we can't do that right now. I imagine at some point in the future, we will, but if you go to a traditional inventory counting company, they'll laugh at you if you ask them to do that. So, well, it's true. Actually, traditional inventory counters, if you look at our grocery store example, they won't touch anything that is perishable. Right. So in our Apple example, there's their box of apples. They're just going to put a sign on it that says "not counted," and that's for them. That's done. But we are. Some things are less. Honestly, some things are less efficient, less effective. Clothing, for instance, right? It is extremely hard to have a pile of clothes. I mean, if you think of like a messy clothing store, right? We are not yet at the point. I mean, even on like the bleeding edge of research with computer vision, machine learning, where you can take a messy pile of clothes and say, oh, this is a men's, type 141 large shirt. That's still, we're still a little ways away from that. But if you want to have somebody pick through the pile and scan all the barcodes, oh, that's easy. I mean, but it's really the items that if you or I can count it,
right?
If somebody who's experienced with the product can count it and can see it, then we can count it. Except it doesn't take time; it's essentially instantaneous.
Wow.
Yeah.
The website is Zupan AI.
Yeah.
Adam's company is located in Zurich. They make a real good job to make your inventory much faster. They say they can 10x the inventory process. Adam, thanks a lot for having you here on this interview.
Thank you for letting me talk about my boring software.
If we always that would be the case, we would be the boring podcast channel on earth.
Thank you, listeners.
Thank you very much. Have a
pleasure.
Good time and a lot of success with the Zupan or with the AI count software. I wish you the very best.
Thank you for having me.